Morning, everyone. I hope that you've had a good day yesterday. It was certainly a very beautiful day. And as long as you spent outside or as much as you looked out the window and enjoyed that, I hope it was restful and calming and warm. I was out last night with my telescope and looking at some bits of the universe which are out for a couple more months at the end of winter, looking at the Great Orion Nebula, Andromeda Galaxy, which is our nearest neighbor as a galaxy, 2.5 million light years away. Just a smudge in the telescope, but just a beautiful thing to look at. And other thing, great cluster in Hercules. There's a double cluster of stars in Perseus, which is beautiful, and the Manger, the Beehive cluster, um, which is also called the Manger, which might have been a bit appropriate given what I talked about yesterday. It's not a bad time actually tonight as well if you want to just step outside into the garden. If you've got a pair of binoculars, that's also a really great way of looking at actually everything I've talked about. And there's some really great software to use to just know, even on a phone, what you're looking at. Stellarium is one. I'm just having a look at what I use. Sky Portal is another one. Those are both very good. Even just Google Maps has a sky map, and you can use that. The brightest thing in the sky towards the west is Venus. It's not a star, obviously, it's a planet. But across, if you look at Orion and then down to the left of Orion, there's a bright star called Sirius, which is our nearest neighbor. It's the second brightest star in the sky. We can't see the brightest one. It's in the southern hemisphere, or only visible from there. But Sirius is our nearest neighbor, and it's 8 light years away. And just getting a sense of scale of the size of a virus and the way that it affects our lives against the scale of the universe is an extraordinary thing to do. And tonight will be a great night again to just pop outside, and even if you don't want to know what you're looking at, just have a look around. It really helps if you're not anywhere near a street light. So if you can block that out a bit or find a way of sitting in a dark corner of your garden, then that would be a great way of looking at the sky. This morning, I thought I wanted to talk a little bit about prayer and what it means to pray, and I'll do that a couple of times. This post is for everybody. It's not just for people who consider themselves religious. In fact, even those who are not religious do often find themselves wondering and exploring and expressing themselves in some way that they might or might not want to call prayer. A colleague of mine called Trey Hall heads up the discipleship and evangelism team at Methodist HQ in London. He's an amazing man. He's a very gregarious American, and he wrote a post on Facebook yesterday, which I'm just going to read for you because it spoke so much to me, and I hope it does to you this morning. He said, "I've seen so many great posts about the need to stay non-anxious in the time of coronavirus, but I've not seen as many recommendations for how to practice that. When I got sober in my early 30s, I was experiencing pretty extreme anxiety, and an agnostic friend in my recovery group suggested meditation and prayer. It's a way to remember that you're not the headquarters of the universe," she said. "It's a way to remember that most of the time you're not the solution to your problems. The impulse to meditate may not be your natural default. Prayer may not be your ordinary method. You may not even consider yourself a spiritual or religious person. But coronavirus times are weird times. The other day, one of my devout atheist friends said, 'I don't believe in any kind of God at all, but I feel drawn to pray.' So if that's where you are, here's just one starter suggestion for folks of any faith or no faith who want to experiment with a different kind of rhythm in these anxious times. Just to be clear, there are loads of ways to meditate and pray. This is just one of them that has been helpful for me. So firstly, find a quietish place for a few minutes. The beginning, middle, or end of the day are my faves, but any time can work. Take a few deep breaths and then, speaking aloud, say hello to the headquarters of the universe, however you name it or don't name it. List aloud some of the pressing things that are on your mind. Hello, God, I'm really freaking out about, and then simply ask, can I trust you with that? For this to work, I promise you that it actually doesn't matter if you believe in God or not. What matters is that you start to let your cares go into a space that is not in your head. If you don't believe in God, you can start, hello, God that I don't believe in, I'm really freaking out about. Can I trust you, whom I don't think exists, with that? If this way of praying becomes something you're doing more regularly, you may find yourself craving a little pattern to help you cycle through the list of things on your mind. I love the framework that writer Anne Lamott offers. Help, thanks, wow. You can let each of those words guide a short section of your prayer. For example, help. Help me, God, as I try to cope with this effing anxiety that's eating away at me. Help the nurses and doctors and first responders who are sacrificing so much right now. Help my kids find wonder and delight in these confined days. Thanks. Thank you, higher power that I don't actually believe in. Thank you that I woke up this morning. Thanks for the breath in my lungs, for bread on the table and coffee in the pot, for the way my dog cuddles up next to me. Wow. Wow, Divine HQ, that flowers are still growing and birds are still singing. Wow, that people who don't know each other actually give a damn about each other. Wow, how good it is to have sex with my partner, to feel the sun on my face. Wow, for life and death, and somehow mysteriously life beyond death. Again, Trey says, this is merely a suggestion. It may or may not be your cup of tea. I can only offer what works for me, and tell you that as I began to practice this from time to time, at first, moving eventually into a daily rhythm, things began to change. I still noticed the anxiety. It didn't evaporate, but it did begin to lose some of its power. And over time, my lenses started to shift to see the universe, other people, myself, and the headquarters of it all in a vastly different way. Peace be with all of you in these anxious, beautiful days. Now, I don't know if any of that spoke to you or not. I liked it partly because I can see Trey saying those things and expressing them in the way that he does so well. But these are times in which we do ask questions about what it means to have faith or not have faith, and what our lives really mean. And if stopping for a little bit in the course of each day is helpful, and it is universally helpful, I don't know anyone who hasn't found it helpful, to learn the art of deciding to stop and to pause and to catch up. If you are prone to anxiety, be careful that you don't set yourself up into a time where your emotion can spiral downwards into a really problematic anxiety. So do as much as you can, and if it means starting gently or not doing this at all, it's absolutely fine. But I think Trey is right. To find a quietish space in each of our days, in these coming days, to frame that in some way, and he suggests Anne Lamott's 3 words: help, thanks, wow. Beginning with our dependence and our helplessness, moving into our gratitude, and finding reasons to wonder at the world. That's not a bad framework to start with. So I hope that today you're able to pause, you're able to be a quiet at some point, you're able to take stock and reflect, you're able to somehow, if you need to break through the whirlwind of emotions and thoughts and feelings for yourself and for others and for the world that you might have at this time, and you're able to somehow express where you are to God, to not God, to in a way that makes sense to you today. Prayer is not a kind of spell that we cast, and it's not a sort of instruction sheet we give to God. It's not pleading, and it's not desperate, and it's not manipulative. It's not just practical. It's about expressing ourselves in whatever way makes sense for us and helps us to feel grounded in not just who we are, but the things that matter most, just for today. So whatever today is going to be like, the sun is shining again, the stars will be out tonight. I pray and hope that you will have the best day you possibly can. So loving God, help us to be quiet, help us to pause, help us to recognize our smallness, but not feel overwhelmed by that. Help us to feel connected to something much bigger than ourselves, even if that is the community in which we live and the world in which we take our place. Help us to give thanks for the things that are good in our lives, even as we express our anxieties. And help us to take the time to notice and to wonder at the world that is still beautiful and still magical and still there for our adventuring into, even if from a distance. So bless us just for today in our decisions to be quiet and our ability to be ourselves with you. Amen. Have a good day, everyone. See you tomorrow.